the government news brief for Thursday, December 1, 2016. In the news, hinterland regions to get better roads, major growth expected for fisheries and livestock subsectors, and the Minister of Public Security reinforces zero-tolerance policy for corrupt law enforcement officials. Stay tuned for these and other stories. Thank you for staying with us. I am Renetta LaFleur. Here are the details. The hinterland regions are set to be transformed with better roads and bridges as government moves towards improving accessibility and living standards. More in this report.
The sum of $2.3 billion has been allocated for the construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance of hinterland roads and bridges. This came out during Minister of Finance Winston Jordan's presentation of the 2017 national budget.
Bringing a good life to all Guyanese must translate into reduced cost of living in hinterland communities. An expanded range of health services, improved quality of education, food security, cultural preservation, job creation, reliable and renewable energy, and adequate infrastructure for physical and virtual connectivity.
Works slated for 2017 include beginning a permanent fixed bridge across the Essequibo River at Kurupukari, resurfacing and upgrading where necessary of the Linden-Soosdijk Highway, and pursuing negotiations for the dredging of the Demerara River. Targeted interventions of the roads include startup of the first phase of the Linden to Letem Road, the Port Kaituma Road in Region 1, Isano and Karo to Buckhall Roads in Region 7, Karasabay to Monkey Mountain in Region 8, and Aishalton Junction to Shia in Region 9. Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs Sidney Alicock says,
"It's about allowing our people to be preparing for the development that is coming. I mean, we cannot remain in that way forever. There's a process. The country is growing, population is growing, there are security risks because of the road."
Several roads and bridges have already been improved while others are awaiting completion. Senior Hinterland Engineer, Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Naeem Mohammed, notes that the Linden to Letem Road is 70 to 80% repaired. He says that when the road is bad, traveling time is 18 hours. However, this has been reduced to 12 hours in present conditions. I am Zanil Williams for the Government News Brief.
2017 promises vast improvement in the fisheries and livestock subsectors despite slow growth this year. Delicia Haynes tells us more.
The establishment of abattoirs and the tuna factory is expected to contribute to the fisheries and livestock subsector, promoting a more diverse agricultural base. Minister of Finance Winston Jordan says that these industries will expand output in 2017.
To build a more robust and competitive livestock subsector, the government will continue to focus on animal health through greater disease surveillance and control, genetic improvements for enhanced productivity and profitability of cattle, and animal production. In addition, we will explore the option of the further promotion of deep sea fishing, as it is currently an underutilized resource that is within our exclusive economic zone. The private sector has already taken the initiative to pursue this option and has invested $50 million in a processing plant for tuna, the first ever commercial tuna venture in this country.
While presenting the 2017 national budget, Minister Jordan highlighted that government has invested a sum of $20.6 billion to extend the diversification process with expectancy of vast growth in each subsector.
The establishment of 2 abattoirs in regions 5 and 9, along with improved breeding stock and better husbandry practices, are expected to boost growth in this sector. Mr. Speaker, the forestry subsector, growth in the fishery subsector is expected to be augmented by the introduction of deep float pelagic tuna production.
Expenditure in the agriculture sector will concentrate on rapid diversification and enhanced competitiveness. With monies allocated, there will be improvement in drainage and irrigation systems, increased cultivation and productivity in traditional agriculture, large-scale agriculture promotion in the intermediate and Rupununi savannas, and strengthened livestock and fishery subsectors. Government will also train veterinary diagnostic laboratory technicians in areas such as microbiology, serology, pathology, and molecular biology. For the Government News Brief,
Minister Ramjatan reinforces the government's zero-tolerance policy for corrupt law enforcement officials. Zenila Williams has the details.
Public Security Minister Kemraj Ramchatan wants to leave little doubt about the consequences for those law enforcement officials who betray the duties of their offices. Minister Ramchatan says these corrupt officials would be driven from the shadows and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Look, the massive amount of drugs, cocaine, meth, and cannabis sativa can have what is called this appealing effect on even your law enforcement officers getting corrupt. And it is something that we have to understand because of the big monies in these major drug deals and narco trafficking and all of that. And it has a corrupting influence with even senior police officers. And that is why rogue cops must go is a theme of this ministry.
The administration's zero tolerance for corrupt law enforcement officials have so far resulted in over 50 officials from the Guyana Police Force being interdicted, charged, and fired for various acts of misconduct. These include corrupt transactions, robbery under arms, larceny, and wounding. Minister Ramchatan says that the administration will use more stringent measures as it works to weed out other corrupt officials in the other agencies in the security sector.
We are going to do everything to scrutinize even some of the investigators and the investigations they have done to ensure that we catch them. So the elimination of rogue cops in the police force is a big thing, very big thing for me, and of course our president. We want this thing to come to a halt because unless we cleanse the police force and law enforcement, and it goes for Coast Guard, it goes for KANU, it goes for the GRA law enforcement section, once we start cleaning up there, I think we're going to have a better security system.
The administration will continue to root out the rogue elements in law enforcement, and the public also can play its role. Minister Ramchatan calls on the public to assist the administration in its efforts.
But we are going to do all in our capacity to help, turn this thing around. It'll take some time, but we're going to turn it around. And as we get the reports, and that is why I'm telling members, like I went up quarantine, and I told the people, I want them to speak out against rogue cops and cops that are corrupt and all of that. Because if they remain silent, that silence will be condonation. And silence is violence. It will be violence in them. And so it is important that that message be taken out there.
The administration's effort to rid out the sector of rogue officials is aimed at professionalizing the security sector to ensure that its mandate is delivered effectively. Steps in this regard have also seen moves to ensure a better quality of intake at the recruitment level and the provision of more training for those officials already in the system. I am Zanil Williams for the Government News Brief.
Guyana is working to secure geographical indication for the name Demerara with assistance from the European Commission. Here is that report.
The Commercial Registry has received 3 applications for the geographical indication of the name Demerara. First Vice President Carl Greenidge notes that the protection of the Demerara name is important to economic development.
GI protection for those products means that a given name, Demerara, can only be used for products made or originating in Guyana. And if production is moved out of Guyana, they will no longer enjoy that nomenclature.
Geographical indications, GI, are names and other designations used on goods which have a specific geographical origin and possess qualities or a reputation due to that place of origin. The 3 applications at the Commercial Registry are for Demerara sugar, Demerara molasses, and Demerara rum. The efforts to have the Demerara name protected is being supported by the EU Economic Partnership Agreement and seeks to make Guyana one of the 3,000 countries listed under GI protection, Vice President Carl Greenidge points out.
Under the EPA, and more particularly Article 145, protection is provided for geographical indications. But that protection is not automatically given to products, they have actually to be, first of all, and most importantly, they first of all have to enjoy protection in the countries in question.
While there is legislation for the protection of geographical indications in Guyana, this is the first time that applications have been made for such protection. The Vice President says that there is great potential for economic development through geographical indications.
Geographical indications are now, therefore, developing quite fast. They represent an important instrument for trade, rural development, protection of know-how and tradition, as well as products promotion and tourism.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is hosting a 2-day GI conference titled Enhancing Market Access and Promoting Certification for Quality Urgent Products in Guyana. The conference seeks to bring awareness on the importance and relevance of GI and the appropriate measures that can be taken to recapture the Demerara name. For the Government News Brief, I'm Tiffany Rogers.
The affairs of the National Assembly are now being communicated to a wider audience thanks to sign interpreters. Here is that Neola Damon report.
The use of sign language interpreters initiated during the presentation of the 2017 national budget by Finance Minister Winston Jordan was a first. The Ministry of Finance's Budget Director Sonia Rupnath says the decision was taken after discussions with one of her colleagues.
Barbara Lawrence at the Ministry of Health, we were talking about budgets in the budget hearing a couple of years ago and people participating, and finance was concerned that people weren't fully engaged in the budget process. You ask people, a general person in the street, what do you think about the budget or the process? They're not really sure what it is about. And we thought one of the things we could do for people who also couldn't actually hear the speech was to do a sign language version so that you have a broader section of the society that's able to access the information.
The Finance Ministry's Budget Director notes feedback will indicate whether the initiative was a success.
When we get the feedback, understanding whether that was a useful intervention or not, then we will know if it worked.
The two sign language interpreters were Maikawana Israel and Sean Thomas of the Ministry of Youth and Culture's Borough School of Arts.
This will help the deaf community to focus more on what is happening and what is in the budget for them, to make them to understand. And two, it is a way of awareness so that the areas will get to understand how to communicate with the deaf community.
Thomas says that similar exercises should be done to enable more persons to get critically needed information.
It's a right approach with the two of us interpreting for the deaf community, and it is a starting point that for other interpreters to come on board, whereby you're going to have them on televisions, different television stations, interpreting so that the message could reach across to the deaf community, because most of the time the deaf is being left out what is going on in our society.
Agencies or persons wishing to use the services of the sign language interpreters can contact them on 626-9723 or 673-5980, the Guyana Deaf Association, the Guyana Deaf Mission, or the Ministry of Education's Youth and Culture Department. I'm Neola Damon for Government News Brief.
Guyana needs more support and commitment to tackle the prevention of the infection. This was highlighted at the World's AIDS Day Forum today. Delon Sanko has that report.
Programs Director of the National AIDS Program Secretariat, NAPS, Dr. Rhonda Moore, says that the Secretariat has been more focused on prevention of the disease in 2016. Speaking with the Government Information Agency, GINA, at a Pan-Caribbean Partnership Against HIV and AIDS, PANCOP, in collaboration with CARICOM and NAPS event in observance of World AIDS Day, December 1st.
Thus far for 2016, most of our activities would have been concentrated among working with the key population at higher risk. So we have a prevention of HIV services package, where testing and counseling is offered, capacity building, peer educator training, condom distribution of lubricants. And this is done specifically targeting our key population, which would be men who have sex with men, female sex workers, minors, and loggers.
Dr. Moore notes that the Secretariat is still involved in community mobilization efforts to bring about awareness among both in and out of school youths, since the youngest infected person moved from age 24 to 15 years. The response to HIV/AIDS prevention has been overwhelming, Dr. Moore says.
We've been doing pretty well in terms of reaching the key population at higher risk. We've already been able to reach over 6,000 MSM female sex workers, more than 7,000 minors and loggers, and this is just for the first half of the year. So the other works that we're doing in terms of our response includes prevention of mother-to-child transmission, and through this we're improving our testing of mothers to ensure that mothers in all the regions are tested during pregnancy.
Dr. Moore points out that much more needs to be done, which is not impossible. However, more commitment is needed. Dr. Manuram Siknandan, Deputy Secretary General of CARICOM, says that in Guyana, much more support is needed to eliminate the scourge by 2030.
Member states are very much committed towards providing treatment, care and support for HIV-positive citizens, but prevention is important. All of us know that member states are constantly struggling when it comes to their budget. Where do we put the money? Is it health? Is it education? Is it agriculture? Is it sports? Where does it go? And no matter where you put it, people will always complain, right? And sectors always feel discriminated. So it's really a struggle. And again, if we can help each other and we can help our governments minimizing that struggle, then we have to do it.
World AIDS Day 2016 is observed under the theme Hands Up for #HIV Prevention. HIV and AIDS has remained a scourge in the Third World and the Caribbean countries. Over the years, there have been concentrated testing and counseling campaigns in the fight against HIV and AIDS, both on a public and private level. Delon Sanko for the Government News Brief.
We have come to the end of this edition of the Government News Brief. The details of these and other stories can be found on GINA's website. You can also visit and like our Facebook page to be updated as the news unfolds. Join us tomorrow for another edition of the Government News Brief. I am Renetta LaFleur. Thank you for watching.